Good morning. It's Thursday, the 21st of May, and welcome to another episode of the Three C's with myself, Emma Kirk, and Sarah Williamson. We're joined today by the fabulous Anne and Ali, and today's topic is stress and anxiety, which I'm sure we're all quite familiar with. Anne is going to give us a little bit of insight on how we can maybe address that, and Ali is going to share some personal stories. Sarah, would you like to hand over and talk?
Of course, Emma. Morning, ladies.
Morning.
I don't know about you, but I'm loving this sunshine. It's a bit much for my skin, but hey, I'm getting my vitamin D top up. And what could be better during lockdown than having great weather? Alison, you and I met a few years ago. We were both taken into hospital whilst on chemotherapy. You were sent one way and I was sent the other, and it was obvious that we were being kept in for infections. So I guess my history with yourself, Anne, is that we met through cancer experiences, and we've all, between us, done a lot of fundraising for cancer charities in Yorkshire. Today I'd like to look at really how we can get hints and tips around dealing with anxiety. Your history, Alison, I hope you don't mind me asking, you had health anxiety prior to being diagnosed with cancer. Do you want to share some of your experiences about what anxiety was and how you dealt with it?
About maybe nearly a year before I was diagnosed with cancer, I was sort of getting really panicky about every little thing that was wrong with me, every ache, every pain, worrying about my moles, whether I'd got skin cancer. And I think I must have been doing my colleague's head in, and they sort of said, Alison, you really need to get yourself sorted here. So I went to the doctors, and they told me to refer myself to a place called Turning Point, which I think many of you will have heard of. So I did that, and I had some counselling over the telephone initially, which actually didn't really make me feel any better. I was still panicking and stressing about every little thing. Then I started having one-to-one sessions with one of the members of staff there on a Saturday morning. And basically, I took control of what we were talking about in the group. And because it was skin cancer that I was fretting about, we had to concentrate on my moles. So one day I was allowed to concentrate on a certain mole. The next day I'd not got to concentrate on it at all. And what I learnt from that was that the more you worry about a pain or an ache or something, the worse it actually seems. So obviously by the end of the counselling, I was in a really good place. And then sadly, the following January, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. But thankfully, because I'd had the counselling, I was able to use it to get me through all the treatment, chemo, mastectomy, radiotherapy. And when I was worried about something, I could put it into perspective and say, right, hang on a minute, how long have you had this pain? How new is it? Has it changed or whatever, this spot or mole or whatever it was that I was worrying about? And I gave it more time. And then if it continued for a number of weeks, then I might have rung the GP, or while I was under treatment, obviously I could ring the breast care nurses or the hospital. So to come to the current situation, obviously now I use all that therapy I had, all that counselling, that if now I get myself into a state about something, like if I'm worrying about COVID-19, for example, I kind of try and look at the positives and turn it on its head, and kind of say, well, actually, Alison, so, we're under lockdown, but you're lucky that you're able to go out. You can go for a walk, you can go shopping if you want to, but obviously maintaining social distancing. But then, like yourself and I were talking yesterday, appreciating nature, being at one with nature. I'm sure Anne will probably come in and say some of these things are really helpful. And also I found that being positive and sharing my experiences with other members of our group, and supporting them has really, really picked me up and helped me sort of like turn a corner, if you like.
I think without making light of moles and what I could almost call dot-to-dot therapy,
Yeah.
concentrating on each, gave you like stepping stones. And I've seen you grow so much over the last few years. You're quite a confident person, very supportive. Instead of looking at the main problem, you always stand back and say, can I change it? No. Can I change how I deal with it? Yes. And you are using those skills and that toolkit to support other people going through cancer who are fearing. It might be, I'm terrified of anaesthetic. I'm not bothered about what they do to my body, but will I wake up? I know through speaking to friends and family, they've got young children that they're saying at bedtime they're having panic attacks because they don't want to leave the house. They're scared of COVID-19 and they're just having to say we've tried everything. But I know, Anne, you've talked through your therapies and your life coaching around the power of breathing. Do you want to fill us in a bit about some of the tips that can help keep calm?
Absolutely, and I'll get onto that, but I'll just say to Ali, everything that you've mentioned there would be things that I would talk about as well, and perhaps we'll come back into some of those. But the primary thing that I'd like to say to everybody is there's no one size fits all. Try something. If it feels good, carry on. If it doesn't work for you, there's always something else. We are individuals, we are unique. The way our brains work is different for everybody. We have different triggers. So I think what I like to think of it is that I can provide a toolkit. If I'm working one-to-one with somebody, I can see what's working and we can develop it further. When we're talking to a group, the best really we can do is provide that toolkit and a range of things that people might want to try. And as I say, if they start to feel that it's working for them, they're starting to feel a bit better, they might want to go further into that particular thing and expand it in their life. But coming back to breathing is always my top tip, because we all breathe, but most of us don't breathe properly anyway. And it's something that you can get hold of wherever, whenever you are. And it's magic, So, but what I would say, particularly actually for kids, if they can't sleep at night, or for anybody really, if you're feeling panicked at night, but it works particularly well with children because when you start to breathe properly, you're focusing on one thing, and that's your breath. And that just automatically quietens down the chatter in your head. And it's similar to meditation, but people are scared of meditation. We have to breathe to live. So talking about breathing is the best. And what I recommend people do is just sit or stand, lie, however you're comfortable, but be comfortable. If you can close your eyes, I think that helps, because again, it just puts that focus back into your breath so that you're not consciously aware of people walking about or, things that are going on around you. If you can close your eyes, do that. And then just simply take a deep breath in and count. Count to 4, I would say. Again, there's no real science around how long you breathe in and breathe out for. But as you'll see, it's better if you can breathe out for a count longer than you breathe in, and go into that in a moment. But as you're breathing in, try to make sure that your tummy is expanding, that you're breathing out from, because most of us breathe from the chest upwards. And that isn't good. That isn't the way we're designed to breathe. That almost induces a panic reflex because we're not really using our lungs properly. So when we start to breathe in deeply and we feel, you can put your hands on your tummy and just feel your tummy expanding and contracting as you go in and out. But if you breathe in slowly, just breathe in, count to 4, breathe in through your nose, hold it for a second, and then breathe out. And as you're breathing out, breathe out through your mouth. Some breathing practices are in and out through the nose, but to calm you, it's better to breathe out through your mouth because it connects a different reflex system in your body. Breathe out and breathe out for 5. If you've breathed in for 4, breathe out for 5. And then repeat it. Now, as you're breathing out, I can see it with Sarah. I can't see your shoulders quite so well, Ali, but your shoulders drop. That means you're feeling more relaxed. Actually, it sends this magic signal all around your body that actually, if you can take a deep breath, things must be okay. Because part of our fight or flight reflex, when we see a perceived danger, or imagine it in our heads, which can be around anything, immediately where our body starts to kick in that fight or flight reflex. So we start releasing hormones around our body. We start, because our bodies are geared up to run away from the nasty tiger, whatever, that's chasing us. We need to shut down some of our bodily functions to enable us to run fast, to be stronger. So our digestion shuts down, but also the flow of blood around the body changes, and we start to breathe more in pants because that allows us to run better. So just by taking a deep breath in, you're sending that signal to the amygdala, which is our fear response in the brain. It starts to send that message, everything's okay, actually. So if you do that for as long as you want to, really, again, it won't do you any harm. There's no side effects of this except that you might possibly fall asleep, which isn't a bad thing if you're lying down. You obviously won't fall asleep if you're standing up or sitting, you're less likely to. But if you are if your body's supported and relaxed and you're lying down, you may fall asleep, or it may be that you'll then feel comfortable to turn into your normal sleeping position. So when I'm doing this in bed, I would lie on my back because I can breathe better. I can breathe more deeply lying on my back, but I don't sleep on my back. So I will do that for a little while. I won't put a limit on it in time or breaths, because it's just when you feel okay, it's fine. Then turn onto your side or however you normally sleep, and you will probably find you can then get off to sleep because you've calmed your head, you've told your body everything's okay, and then you can just get into your sleep. It hasn't changed anything. Whatever it is that you were worried about is still out there, but it's your response to it that has changed. And that's similar to what you were saying earlier, Ali. So does that make sense?
It does, Anne. It does. It makes sense to me.
It
I
does,
can
yes.
100% guarantee that I would fall asleep.
Brilliant. Yeah. But it's really good for kids because it gives them something to focus on.
Mm-hmm. I last night was struggling to sleep because I could hear a helicopter overhead, and this was literally right through till 3:30 in the morning. Did you hear it, Alison?
Yeah.
And you know what you do? You go on to you've lived in whichever town you live in. And then suddenly you see a story of, the police are down this avenue with torches. Obviously, they're following someone. And for some stupid reason, I live on my own. I'm very self-sufficient and very independent. I decided I need to check that all the windows were locked shut. And I had to go through that mental breakdown of, I've seen you do it, Anne. You have a square box that you visualise, and you're literally breathing in and then breathing across and out, breathing in and coming back along the square.
Yeah.
And I was just so thankful that I'd got that tool, because I'd just got myself into, I haven't got COVID, I'm sure, but my breathing's different. Let's break it down. It's that silly cherry tree in the garden, so I've got hay fever. But it was just ridiculous last night.
But it's not
so
ridiculous.
It does help.
I don't think it is ridiculous, Sarah. I think that's the other thing is to accept that if you're worried about something, don't then beat yourself up because you think you shouldn't be. If you're feeling a certain way, you're feeling it. If we're feeling happy, we don't dissect it, do we? We don't start to say, I shouldn't really be feeling happy because there's people starving out there in the world. We just enjoy being happy. So you need to turn that the other way around and say, actually, it's okay to feel however I do right now. Now, in 10 minutes' time or 10 minutes ago, you might not have had that worry, that fear. You might have dealt with a situation. You know, if you weren't in bed, you might have felt differently about hearing the helicopter. You know, there's all sorts of things that can trigger thoughts in our minds. It's okay to just acknowledge right now, this is how I'm feeling. And actually, if the thing that will help you is to go around and check all the windows are closed, is there any harm in that? Maybe not. Just do it, and then come back and do the breathing. And the square breathing is, or box breathing, sometimes people call it, is another breathing technique. Yeah, there are loads out there, and anything that works, but breathing again. And sometimes for people, visualizing something like going along the lines of a box really help again to really concentrate the mind. Strangely, when I started to do that, I found that I was worried that my sides weren't equal, so it wasn't a square.
You always step out of the box, Anne.
Yeah, there's always one, isn't there? And it's usually me. You know, so yeah, visualizing something is really good. Another thing, actually, for people talking about visualizing, if you have a happy place, it's quite good really to think about a place you like to be, or people that you like. You know, where do you feel at peace? It can be anything. You know, it might be soaking in the bath, it might be sitting hearing the birds sing, it might be lying on a particular beach that you love, that you've got good memories from. You know, and that's something else I would recommend everybody, while they're feeling good, think about what that is. Don't think about the fact that you can't be with the people that were in that memory, or you can't travel to that place. Focus on the feeling that you have when you're there. And it might even be, if you can't think of something, just think about the last time you really felt relaxed and happy, and just focus on that feeling. And having that feeling while you're doing a breathing exercise can help as well, because it just, again, it's all about sending these messages. So sorry to go into a little bit of a not terribly scientific, but a bit scientific around our stress response again. You know, our bodies are designed to keep us safe. You know, our minds react in a certain way because it's all about keeping us safe, and that's how the human race has lasted as long. But unfortunately, although we were designed, you know, when humans first began, the fear response was there to keep us safe from a physical threat. You know, perhaps a perceived physical threat, but you could hear something in the bushes that you thought might eat you, or you've got a foe that's going to attack you. And, you know, so, but that's not life now, is it? You know, our fear is around our health, our lack of freedom. You know, thinking about COVID, it's health, lack of freedom, finances, worrying about other people and their safety, and not being able to. We focus on all the things that we can't do and haven't got right now, understandably. But they are real, genuine fears. But that's life now. Modern life, anyway, isn't about running away from some marauding animal or person, is it? It's all about IT.
I ran away yesterday, didn't I?
IT.
I think there's a story there, Emma. Yeah, but really, modern life is more about feelings rather than a physical threat, isn't it? It's more about an internal thing, which is where all the anxiety comes from. But yeah, once we realise that anything can trigger that off, we can start to get control of it.
I think a big issue for a lot of people is finance at the moment, and how safe they feel going to work. Are they getting pressured by employers to go back to work, but they don't feel safe that measures are in place to safeguard themselves? I know that some people are working avidly from home and the boundaries have totally changed because they're sleeping at weird times, they're awakening at unrealistic times. And some are saying to me they want to do more than they would normally would because they want to keep their job. So they're overcompensating.
Mm-hmm.
Some are saying, oh, do you know what? I'm having a wobble. I've achieved nothing today. And I will say to them, but that's okay in where we're at now. And both Emma and I had quite a stressful day yesterday and just bounced off each other, didn't we?
Yeah.
Broke it down and said, right, what's real right now? What's really
Mm-hmm.
important? But I think there's a lot to be said for diet, isn't there, Anne? You look at how foods can make us happy, or what we put inside us can have an impact.
Mm.
I look at Monday of next week, 25th of May, is National Barbecue Week. We go back to barbecues 10 years ago, everything was charcoal and absolutely burnt to a cinder. And I'm thinking, yay, I'm going to have my own little barbecue outside and I'm going to have a rainbow of colours. I absolutely love barbecues. So tell us a bit about your thoughts on diet. I noticed your post this morning, Anne.
Yeah. Well, what people don't realise is that, you know, in our gut, we have lots of bacteria that break down food and so on. And that's referred to as our microbiome, our gut microbiome. And, you know, usually we're worried about bacteria and we're trying to wash it off. But this is a helpful thing. But it has to be balanced in a certain way to help us deal with our digestion. But actually, that gut microbiome, I'm going to have to get somebody else's teeth because mine aren't working today. The gut microbiome can affect how we feel as well. There are actually signals that come from our stomach up to the brain that gives us a sense of well-being. And again, you know, a scientist could tell you better how this all connects together, but it's part of that prehistoric sort of response thing that we have. But the essential thing is that you understand that what you put into your stomach can affect the messages that are going to your brain, and it can cause your brain to release certain hormones that are again around the stress reflex. So it's really important, not just for health in general. You know, we're always being told we should eat healthily because that stops us putting on weight and so on and so forth, helps with movement and so on, but actually it's more than that. So you know, most of us will reach for something sweet when we're feeling stressed, or it might be alcohol. There's some kind of stress reflex that we have, and it's often around food, and for women it's predominantly something sweet. And that is because when we fell over and bumped our knees, you know, your mum probably dusted you off, made sure you were okay, and gave you a sweet or a biscuit or a piece of cake or whatever was around. So we associate that with feeling good, feeling better.
This is making me, because I was speaking to some colleagues on the front line working in hospitals, and we interviewed Vicky, head of volunteer services for Mid Yorkshire Hospitals, and I was saying, is there really enough equipment? Is there really enough protective gear? And she said, we're okay now. And I said, what about food and, you know, all these deliveries of pizzas and cakes? And she said, we've enough. She said, every time we stop and have a cuppa, there's a biscuit. We're not used to stuffing that much inside of us. And, you know, I was speaking to someone who's working with diabetes patients. She's diabetic herself, and she said, I don't want to see a biscuit again. The people are picking up on the sugar, and we're seeing people with blood pressure rising as well. I mean, Emma's really the one to bring in here. You're the nutritionist. What kind of things are you seeing happen with your patients with diet at the moment?
In terms of diet, I'm actually just gonna tell you a little quick story. Going back to what Anne said about when you were younger and you were rewarded for having an injury by giving some sort of sweet. I dislocated my thumb in Scotland. I got it. I was only like 2 years old. Got my, like you do when you're a kid. You think, oh, that's an interesting hole. I'll put my hand in there, see what I can find. Pulled my hand out, dislocated my thumb. Went to the doctors. The doctor gave me a sugar lump to obviously soothe my issue. And apparently, I don't really remember this, but apparently I just spat it out in his hand.
Oh,
Oh, good for you.
And I was just like, what the heck are you giving me this for? You know what I mean? Anyway, so I just thought that it just made me chuckle when you were talking about that, because I actually remember being given stuff, not from my parents, but certainly this chap thought that was how to cure my issue. But in terms of in my patients that I'm seeing, a lot of people are struggling at beginning. They were struggling to get a good variety of food. Deliveries were a bit sporadic. We were certainly, people with allergies were struggling perhaps to get gluten free and dairy free, and that was a big issue. So they were having to have a more restricted diet than normal. I have seen an increase in people drinking alcohol. Because I think people just find that they're almost like the mental state is that they're on an elongated holiday. If you're on holiday, you would perhaps drink more than normal, and that's how people are perceiving this almost. I find that people are probably eating a lot more sugar, but they're eating a lot more junk food. They're getting takeaways. They're having more kind of a party atmosphere. And the interesting thing is as well is because people aren't moving around as much, there's a weight gain that is associated for me with a lack of calorific output. That people don't necessarily notice. So if you're, say, a chef working 9 hours a day and you're on your feet constantly, and you perhaps have your breakfast and then you have a lunch and then you have your tea, the calories that you take in may be the same now. But if you just do a Joe Wicks workout in the morning and then sit down for the rest of the day, you're not using anywhere near the same amount of calories. So I'm getting an awful lot of people asking me why they're putting weight on, even though they're doing this exercise and they're eating the same. And of course there's that, and then combined with, as Anne was saying, stress and the way your body responds to stress, it makes you retain water, and it almost goes into a panic state, and it doesn't know how to cope, because we're not running away from the saber-toothed tiger. Your body would naturally hoard energy to store it for you to run away.
Yeah.
And that's another element that's happening. So it's interesting. My footballers are trying to get fit. They're hoping their season's going to restart, and they're finding it extremely difficult. Extremely difficult.
I can
So it's been a
really,
massive shift.
I'm really in there with that kind of mindset, because obviously being with cancer patients in a gym class with Alison, we've worked so hard to get to a certain fitness level, and a lot of us have been through exercise rehab for mobility issues due to side effects of treatment, and we felt really proud to have actually pushed the limits of what our mind thought our bodies could do, and we've really tested it. And whereas my left arm has always been a problem, I thought I physically couldn't do exercises, but I used my right arm to overcompensate with exercise, and that in turn has created more mobility. And I do have a concern that I don't have access to the gym, that I can't just go in when I want and tune out. We have the amazing resource of virtual personal training classes through yourself, Emma, but I think we're
It's
all
not the same.
hitting a wall at some point. No, because we haven't got the personal contact, or we haven't got that situation where we're saying, hey, Ali, come on,
yeah.
2 more, you can do it, keep going, well done, and
Yeah.
cheering each other on.
But we can be our own.
If I can,
Sorry, Sarah. I think we can be our own cheerleaders, and I think it's something that Ali said right at the beginning. It's about choosing the way we respond to a situation. And as Emma just said, we're all treating this as if it's a reward system, isn't it? When we're on holiday, it's okay, we're on holiday, we can eat what we want, we can drink what we want. Well, we have to find different ways to reward ourselves. And exercise, weird though it is, can actually be that reward, because actually it can make you feel good. So just as what you eat can make you feel less capable, exercise can make you feel good.
I absolutely agree with that, Anne. Exercise can make you feel good. And I've always had the ability to push myself. What I find quite interesting is how that is not across the board. Not everybody has the ability to go do one more in their own head. And I think that in terms of a reward for exercise for reward, should I say, something like going for a walk, perhaps getting out into nature would be what I would suggest. But there's an awful lot of people who are being told that that isn't what they should be doing. And I think it makes it extra difficult to then get that gumption to go exercise as a reward. We're being told that it's not what we should be doing. And I think it's very difficult. And I'm an advocate for being in an environment where you can push each other. The difference between people, when we took on the first group of ladies to do the exercise class, watching how they progressed and then watching how much they inspired the next class to progress faster, it just proved how much of a motivator it was. And watching them all interacting together, there's nothing that can possibly replicate that within yourself, I don't think, because you're much more likely for me to say to Ali, you can do this. And it's almost like that external voice gives you that confidence as well. So I agree with you, Anne, but I think it's horrendously difficult right now.
I think it is difficult, but sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just thinking back to how you might have two children and the oldest learns at a set pace. The second one tends to learn quicker by copying behavioural changes of the first one. And that to me was very prominent with the two classes. So by me being in the first one, it was a new experience. By seeing Ali come through the second one, I was like, hey, I need to get running over those hurdles. She's catching me up. And it was really good, wasn't it? Because it was a joint effort, push.
I think for me,
sorry.
I was just say for me, I think that it really helped having all done the class, and then we came along, and I mean, I've sort of done bits of exercise, yoga and everything for many years, but I thought, oh no, back to the gym, I'm not sure I'm be able to do it. But it's like you've got someone beside you and they're saying, right, come on, let's just do this, or right, you need to do it this way. And I think that is like, it almost gives you like a power. And I mean, obviously one of our eldest members doing the gym, what that lady's managed to achieve at her age in the gym is absolutely outstanding. And I mean, she is like my inspiration to a certain extent, and obviously yourself, Sarah, because obviously I've known you for over 2 years now, and when I think what you were like with your mobility when I first met you and what you can do now. I mean, when I met you in the car park at Pinderfields after one of our meetings and you were doing all these lunges and all sorts, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I'm not going to be able to do that. That's ridiculous. And and the amount of the goodness it's done all of us. And also I think, and Anne will probably agree, you're not thinking about, oh, what's happening outside, or oh, I might if I go in there, this might happen to me, because you're focusing so hard on getting that lunge correct or counting the numbers, because we do numbers, don't we? How many have I done now? I need to do so many more. And you're completely focused and you've not got time to be worrying about anything else. And it's like you saying about doing the breathing, Anne, because you're focusing on the breathing. with the exercise, you're focusing on the exercise. So, I mean, I was saying to Sarah
And
yesterday,
breathing.
yeah, for me, I am actually doing more exercise because I am doing the Joe Wicks and I'm doing your classes twice a week, whereas I might have only been doing them once. I'm still doing Zumba twice a week, and I do some of my yoga stretches. So actually, even though I am doing the comfort eating and the drinking, I am also doing quite a lot of exercise, and I'm lucky enough also to be able to go out and have a walk. You know, and I feel guilty almost because I know that, say, like Sarah, for example, isn't able to go out and have a walk. And I feel like, you know, knowing friends and family are having to stay in and they haven't even got that luxury. But then at the same time, it makes me think, well, actually, look what you have got, Ali. You can go for that walk. So you should be grateful for that. And don't be sitting there thinking, woe is me, which, as Sarah will tell you, that's what I was like, you know, 2 years ago. Everything was a catastrophe, wasn't it, Sarah? And I panicked and worried about everything.
I think that if you break it down, Ali, we had different kind of cancers, and we went through the same treatment plan, but in reverse order.
Yeah.
So you had chemotherapy first, I had surgery, and it was a totally different care plan because of the types of cancer that we had. But I think you hit a wall at the end because you thought, hey, Sarah's got 18 rounds of Herceptin infusions every 3 weeks. They were not pleasant.
No.
And if I'm totally honest, I went into heart failure on 2 occasions, so we had to stop treatment. I then became a cardio patient, and I was part of so many departments at the hospital that I thought, get me off this bus. It's too much. It's too fast. There wasn't a week when I didn't have 2 or 3 appointments, and all I could focus on was the power of the mind. I need to get that next treatment, get me back on it, because this is my last chance of getting through cancer because of the grade and staging. I will do whatever it takes. And it took a lot of persuading the consultants, because I'll never forget the day when the consultant oncologist said to me in front of my mum, Sarah, this is the end of the road. I cannot treat you anymore. You're in heart failure. And there was an almighty silence because I thought, hell, I haven't been through 2 years of hell to stop now. And I had to really focus on breathing, sleeping, my diet, rest. And I had to just drop anything that was negative and return the positive to keep my energy for the next day. I mean, there were really the worst times because I luckily couldn't physically or visibly see myself. My mum was my carer. She fed me, she bathed me, she dressed me. And it took a lot to get back onto having those Herceptin infusions. But then, as you went through your own anxiety and used some of those tools of, let me think about it, let me break it down, what's manageable, you said, well, actually, I wouldn't want to go through what you're going through because it's hell. And I think we've always had the ability to flip that coin. Let's always turn something into a positive, regardless of where we're at. And I've seen you grow so much, and you actually share that experience with other people.
Yeah.
And they're now coming through the next phase of support groups saying, oh, thanks, Ali, that's a really good tip. Or they'll go back to Emma. Well, within the support group online, people are saying, oh, I think I need to look at my diet. You know, I've always had eating issues. And we're like, okay, speak to Emma. She'll do a personal plan. Let's look at a diary to look at what you're putting in your body, at what time, with what meds. And there's so much that we can take control of. So I think you're just a success story, both of you. And you've been through twice, haven't you? With cancer.
Yeah, so I've had breast cancer twice, but I think control is a key thing. I think if we feel we have a sense of control, we are less likely to feel anxious and stressed. And I'm really keen on this thing that we give people some practical things that they can do, think about, rather than, because I know from my clients, and I've coached a lot of people with cancer, but a lot of other issues as well. I specialise in stress reduction, and often the conversations are about, well, I'm failing in, I'm the perhaps isn't the word that people would use, but basically it's people feel I'm failing because I'm not losing weight. I'm failing because I'm not able to cope. I'm failing because I'm not as active, or whatever. And we never put the context around it, and we never break things down. A lot of this is what Ali was saying right at the beginning, and I think the way to take control is to think about what I can do, which is the positive bit, but rather than feeling, oh, positivity, it's all, airy-fairy sort of things, actually just think about what you can do. So in exercise, when I was poorly, I suffered a lot with fatigue. For years and years and years, I've had problems with fatigue, which I, touch wood, have got under control. But in the early days, when I had I was home from hospital and I had my drains in and so on. I'm lucky enough to live in a house that's got a toilet downstairs and a toilet upstairs. So I used to make myself walk upstairs to go to the toilet. And my husband would say, why the heck are you doing that? There's a toilet just, in the corridor there. You don't need to do that. Why are you... And it was because I felt then, even if I couldn't manage that every time I needed the loo, each time I did it, it was a success. It was something I had done, and that got me moving. And I knew that was me moving. So for me, exercise isn't necessarily jumping about, walking miles or whatever. It's moving. Hoovering my home can be exercise. I'm moving my arms, I'm walking around, I'm not sitting. So little story, years and years ago, when my son was small, I used to find him on a Saturday laid on the sofa watching the telly, and I'd talk about him being a couch potato. One day I walked in and he was doing press-ups, and he was only 10, 11. And I said, oh, what are you doing? He said, well, it's the adverts. You told me I'd turn into a couch potato. Every time there's adverts on, I'm doing I'm doing press-ups. But, it's a state of mind. It's taking control. It's saying, okay, I can't go outside for a walk, but what I can do is I can walk the stairs. And look at that guy that climbed the Mount Everest in his home by walking upstairs, or whatever it was that he did. There are things we can do, and we can set ourselves challenges, and maybe that's something even the group wants to think about is, can you reach a certain number of steps, or be active for a certain number of minutes or something. And that
actually do challenge, and we've got the 2-6 challenge, haven't we, Emma? Do you want to fill us in on that one?
Yeah, everybody else was doing a 2.6 mile challenge instead of doing the London Marathon. So obviously,
Yeah.
that was cancelled. So because a lot of people couldn't do the 2.6 miles outside on a walk, we decided, or should I say, I came up with this brilliant idea to do 26 exercises 26 times. And originally I decided that we should do it in 26 minutes, but then having trialed it myself, I thought, no, this is probably not a good idea. So so yeah, you get 2.6 times 26 minutes to complete the challenge. But we've handed it over, in fact, because everybody did it, and we handed it over to Wakefield Trinity Ladies Football and challenged them. And it was interesting to see how unfit they've become, because they were absolutely flagged, and some of the pictures post are interesting. But what that did for me, I think, was it just justified the fact that we were continuing to do the classes. And like you said, Ali, some people were doing the Wednesday and Saturday rather than one, because they had that opportunity. And as much as some people are concerned and anxious that they're losing fitness and they're possibly, putting some weight on, there is that opposite sort of side of the coin, which, you know, we are doing really, really well under the circumstances. And all of the exercise classes we do are, you know, they're in a small space because not everybody's got a large area. They're using normal products that you can get in your home, and it's specifically to encourage that element. But compared to Wakefield Trinity football, you know, we're epic.
Oh, well done, ladies. Yeah. But again, it's just thinking about things differently, isn't it? It's about setting yourself a challenge. And the challenge for some of the ladies might be just to move a little more today than they did yesterday, and just to build it up. And then the going back to the food thing, which is my fault, we digressed from food. It's you know, it is important to understand that we're going through a difficult time, and yes, we perhaps do feel the need to reward ourselves sometimes, but if we can work on the sort of a 80-20 basis, so that 80% of the time we're doing things healthily, sensibly, and then 20% of the time we let our hair down, that's a bit like ours with our normal weekends. I mean, here, my husband and I are still, we went through the first few weeks and we couldn't tell the days from each other. And so we started to decide we would mark the weekends, because we don't normally, it's how we've chosen to live, but we don't normally drink Monday to Friday. So, well, Friday we do. We drink Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then we don't drink for the rest of the week. That's how we were pre-lockdown. Unless we were away somewhere, then it might be a bit different. But, you know, that's when we're home, that's how we would live. And that all went out the window. So we decided, no, we needed to put a bit of a framework back again and mark the weekend. So on a Friday, while we're cooking tea, we'll have a glass of wine. And that's the beginning of our weekend. So not saying all, well, Emma might shoot me down here. I don't say to people, never eat biscuits or cakes or whatever. It's about moderation. And it's about, you know, if we try to set targets that are too hard, we don't achieve them, but then we don't even try because we give up. And I think that's true with diets, it's true with exercise regimes. If we're not seeing success, we need to see success to be encouraged to move on. And I think that's what you get when you're in a group, that you're encouraged so that you recognise the success that you've achieved, that you've been able to do something quicker or gone further or lifted more or whatever the class is entailed. When we're on our own, it's that recognition of success, I think, that is missing, because we're not very good at giving ourselves that pat on the back. We look constantly at what we could have done more of or better or whatever. And we berate, you know, that voice that goes on in our heads is always saying, oh, but you should have done it, you know. So, yeah, okay, well, you haven't had a biscuit today, but yet 3 yesterday. You know, we don't let go. And each day, each minute, we can start again. You know, so yeah, I gave in and I ate a biscuit, you know, half an hour ago. Well, that's okay, because now I'm not, you know, and we build on that. And if we can start to get a different mindset and perspective around what we're doing, then we can start to see that actually we do have things to be grateful for. We see the positives. But right now, I think it's very much about looking at ourselves in a mirror and saying, you're doing okay, actually. You know, it might be that you worry about things, but actually in the last half hour, you've laughed or you've been more productive, or, you know, it can be small things. It doesn't have to be massive.
I have to share, Anne, that we've been using backpacks and tinned food inside them as weights to do exercises. And the very thought is quite primal, and I've just thought, I'm glad no one can see me in my living room doing this. There is a benefit of doing exercise on your own, but I give myself a reward. I was going to make a Thai curry, and I've looked high and low for this coconut milk that I know I bought, tinned, delivered to my door by that lovely Sainsbury's guy on my special delivery. 2 days later, I found it in my backpack. So that kind of affected the diet, so to speak. But on a serious note, I think we're all doing really well, and it highlights to me that there is so much importance in staying in touch, having conversations with people, support groups, and checking in one-to-one, be it around health or mental health, stress, anxiety. It's so important because there's so many people isolated, and we need a frame of reference. So for me, we're getting more referrals more than ever, between 5 and 10 referrals a day for support. We've never been as busy, but I think collectively we've all got a lot of tools we can share. Now, we've just literally got a couple of minutes before we wrap up. Could you say, in a couple of sentences, how you feel your cancer experiences have put you in good stead to deal with COVID?
I'm sorry, cut out there. How I feel what?
Your experience of cancer, your journey, how has
Yeah.
that helped you cope now with COVID and lockdown?
So for me, I think it's about, I focus on today. I don't think about yesterday or tomorrow. I focus on today and what I can do today, and making the most of today, and particularly allowing myself some downtime just to do something non-productive that makes me feel good.
'Cause I think for me, it's sort of looking at the positives, and being kind to yourself. So for some people, being kind to yourself in a day might just be that you switch all your phone and your social media and all sorts of media off, and you have just 10 minutes, either just sitting in your happy place in your house or in your garden, with or without a cup of tea and a biscuit, but just being like Anne's just said, just being in the moment really, and just like being grateful for what you've got. To be honest, that's what I would say.
Thank you. How about you, Emma?
I think it probably gave me the ability to be able to set manageable goals and, like Anne was saying, appreciate when I achieve that. I think lockdown for me is a little bit different because obviously I am working. I feel very privileged to be able to do that. And I think that be one of the drivers for me to rehab myself post-op with cancer was to be able to go back to helping people. And I think because I'm managing to maintain that, that's one of the things for me that keeps me going. So it's a sort of like sense of norm, I guess. But achieving manageable small goals, even for me, like Anne was saying about routine and having a weekend, I think that's really, really important. Yeah.
Well, I guess from what everyone's saying is it's about being in the here and now and recognizing what you can achieve and not beating yourself up.
Yeah.
And if you're able to work, you're appreciative of that. If you're able to walk out, you're appreciative of that. So there's a lot of gratitude.
Yeah.
I think I just need to say a huge thank you to Alison McGrath, teaching assistant, and yourself, Anne Skinner, life coach, and lovely Emma, osteomyelitis, all things, everything labelled wiseologies, sharing your thoughts, because anxiety is quite a big one at the moment for people out there, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you. And I should thank you to yourself as well, Sarah, obviously.
Definitely.